You're watching France 24. Over the weekend, the numbers came in once again, and they were astounding. 1,500 people, migrants to Europe, who were rescued on their way into Europe off the Sicilian island of Lampedusa. There you see images from Turkey this Tuesday, where it was Syrians fleeing their country who were rescued by the Turkish Coast Guard. Not a day goes by, it seems, without such a story. Let's cross now to William Spindler in Geneva. He's Senior Communications Officer at the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees. Thank you for talking with us here on France 24.
Thank you.
Again, it's happening in Lampedusa with these huge numbers, the 1,500 people who were rescued. What's the latest on those 1,500?
Well, there has been a number of operations by the Italian Navy to rescue people in the Mediterranean. And in fact, in the last few days, more than 2,300 people have been rescued by the Navy, which brings the total number of people rescued of Italy this year to over 12,000. So we can see that the wars in the Middle East and in Africa are pushing tens of thousands of people to look for safety, and in many cases they are coming to Europe. Most of them are staying closer to home, but some of them are making that dangerous journey into Europe.
How are these 2,300 that you mentioned being taken care of?
Well, when they are rescued by the Navy, they disembark either in the island of Lampedusa or in Sicily, where they are taken care of, and they are received by the Italian authorities and by international organizations such as ourselves and others, and they are given immediate help. And later on, they are interviewed to see why they want to come to Europe. And the important thing is that most of them are not migrants. In fact, they are refugees fleeing wars and in some cases persecution and human rights violations.
All right, an important distinction there. I know the Italians have complained in years past that they've had to bear the brunt of these rescue operations. When you see the numbers just in the past week, how much of that is being taken care of by the Italians, or has that Europe-wide program now finally working?
Well, in the past, the Italian rescue services managed to save hundreds of thousands of lives in the Mediterranean, but people in Italy began to complain that Italy on its own could not deal with this problem, and we agree. We think that this is an international problem, and we would like to see more international cooperation, particularly from Europe, from the European Union. These are difficult, complex issues, but they are not unmanageable. We think that it's possible to deal with these movements by increasing the capacity to rescue people in the Mediterranean, but also by helping refugees in the countries where they mostly are, which are not close to Europe, but in countries such as Lebanon, such as Jordan, Turkey, Ethiopia, Kenya. These are the countries that are receiving most of the refugees. And we are seeing that some of these refugees are finding conditions in these countries very difficult, and therefore are continuing in their journey, searching for safety and coming to Europe. If we help them where they are, they won't be forced to take these dangerous long journeys to find safety. It's really sad to see some people who have escaped the war in Syria, for instance, and who have survived that terrible war, having to endanger their lives and risk their lives once again crossing the Mediterranean to find safety in Europe. If we could help them closer to home, that would be better for them and for everybody concerned.
And what to do in the case of Libya, where the situation is deteriorating fast, and the latest refugees had, it seems, come from Libya. How do you handle it? What do you do? Whose job is it?
That's correct. Most of the refugees arriving in Italy have left Libya, but they are not Libyans. They are people who are coming from further down south in Africa or from the Middle East. But they come to Libya because it's the easiest way to get to Europe. But the situation in Libya, as you rightly said, is deteriorating, and this is pushing more people to come. So that's a separate issue, but it's part of the solution. We need to try to address conflicts, because at the end of the day, this is what is forcing people to flee. And we see that the international community is paralyzed and not able to prevent and to solve ongoing conflicts, such as that in Syria, but new ones, such as the one in Libya. And at the end of the day, unless we deal with the root causes of why people are moving and fleeing and looking for protection, then we won't be able to solve the problem. We need to activate our capacity to solve these conflicts.
The European Borders Agency, Frontex, saying some 220,000 made the perilous journey in 2014. What are your estimates when it comes to this year?
Well, as you said, the numbers last year were very high, and so far in the first 3 months of 2015, we've seen about 12,000 people crossing into Italy and about 10,000 crossing into Greece. So already we have, as of end of March, more than 22,000 people crossing the Mediterranean. That seems to indicate, although it's perhaps too early to say, that this year's figures will probably be higher than last year's figures. And that just shows the desperation of these people and the fact that in many cases they are not finding the necessary conditions to stay where they are. Some of these people have already left Syria, for instance, or other countries undergoing conflict, and they have been living in some cases for months or years as refugees. But they're finding conditions increasingly difficult there, and therefore are choosing to make onward journeys into Europe. That's why we say that it's urgent to help refugees where they are now, so that they are not forced to undertake these long, dangerous journeys, which in many cases can be fatal for them.
All right, so the need for doing that at the source, but in the meantime, what do you do, William Spindler, when it comes to 220,000 new arrivals for 2014, and you're saying perhaps more for the current year? How do you absorb the number of refugees coming in?
We're talking about the European Union that has a combined population of 500 million people. So these numbers, big as they sound, they are not really that big. It has to be within the realms of possibility for Europe to deal with this situation. We have seen in the past other situations where hundreds of thousands of refugees arrived in Europe from places such as Bosnia in the 90s. These people, once the conflicts in the Balkans were solved, managed to return to their countries of origin or to be successfully integrated into Europe. So we are saying this is not beyond the possibility of Europe. We understand that Europe is in the middle of an economic crisis. There are important concerns about immigration. But most of these people are not migrants. They are refugees fleeing war and persecution. They should be received, they should be protected and helped to return to the countries once the conditions allow it. We need to work at different levels. We need to address the root causes of the problem. We need to help refugees in the countries where they are arriving, mostly, but also some of them will eventually make the long way to Europe, and Europe also has to play a part in this situation and also accept refugees. And here we think that the best way is for them to come through safe, legal ways, rather than risk their lives in this way in the Mediterranean. We should look into more resettlement programs, into more humanitarian admission programs, so that refugees can come directly into Europe through safe, legal ways.
William Spindler of the UNHCR, many thanks for being with us, the UN Refugee Agency.